What is Google Panda? Google Panda is an update that happened around mid-February of 2011. It's also known as Google Farmer. The name Google Panda comes from a Google engineer, an Indian fellow named Navneet Panda. Navneet is actually an expert at machine learning, which is sort of a branch of artificial intelligence. He also, I believe, has an important patent, or he's a co-patenter on some very important machine algorithm type thing. What does that mean for us? Well, Navneet has created a machine language algorithm for Google. And what the machine language algorithm does is it learns from user surveys and then can make predictive choices based on human preferences. So what has happened is Google has got a lot of people together, given them a large set of websites, and ask them to classify sites as good or bad, rate their experiences and their opinions of the site. We don't know the exact questions they asked. We don't know the data set they used. Of course, that's proprietary information. But once Google had a set of sites that people generally considered good and a set of sites that people generally considered bad, Google was able to look at those two groups and see what were the unique factors in the good sites and what were the unique factors in the sites judged bad. And that teaches this machine learning algorithm, this artificial intelligence. So when it sees a website in the future, it can go, hey, are the factors for a good website here, or are the factors for a bad website here? And then take actions based off that. This is also an artificial intelligence that everybody should be familiar with. However, Panda is a lot more interesting. So Panda works as a quality filter on search results. You have the Google algorithm, which it's constantly being tweaked, split test, modified. Google's testing new changes constantly, so subtle that you may not notice nearly all of them. They do issue these large updates every once in a while. Panda is sort of a layer on top, like icing on a cake. It's a quality filter on the search results. So you may have the factors that last year would have ranked you. However, if Panda assesses you better or worse, that can change your SERP position without adding links, without tweaking your on-page for SEO purposes, for the search engine. Panda allows Google to kind of get an idea of sites that users are going to be disappointed with if they show up at the top of the search. The penalty appears to override domain authority. Okay, so when Panda first rolled out, there's been 5 versions that have rolled out. When Panda first rolled out in February, it punished some very large sites. Okay, it was a sharp knife, and it did not spare people. Generally, Panda has awarded really big sites, Amazon, the Wikipedias, and so forth. The reason being is that it's sort of a perfect circle. Those sites provide a great user experience because they're big and they can afford to optimize their user experience. And so because they are big and get a lot of traffic because people like it and use it, and then they continue to optimize the user experience, they get better and better. Panda 1, when it came out, seemed to punish a few sites arbitrarily. It may have been unfair. Again, Google can do so much testing, but a filter like this, they kind of have to do a mass deployment to really start finding the outliers. If 90 sites test out right, but 2 don't, and those 2 are big ones, and it affects a lot of users, that's a big deal. But they don't know that until they test on that kind of base. Key thing, which people do not understand about Google Panda or do not take into account, and it is very frustrating for me trying to speak to people about SEO in 2011, and they're not taking this into account. Panda is refined and pushed manually on almost a monthly basis. The amount of computational power to go through websites and do this page-by-page analysis is incredible. And Google is still testing it, improving it. They've only just recently deployed it to google.co.uk, google.ca, I think it's co.au, the other English language international sites. They've only just done that. They stuck primarily to the U.S. market as their test bed. This is a big deal because if Panda affects you, you cannot get the benefit of trying to fix the problem or, trying to get around the filter with more links necessarily until they do another manual push and they refilter, refactor sites. So if you get a Panda penalty, which could be related to content, it could be related to how many ads you have on your site, your bounce rate, there's all sorts of factors I'm going to cover. You can't correct that until Panda, you can correct that yourself, but Panda will not reflect that change until they do their next manual filtering, and that presumes that you correct the issues that Panda originally may have penalized you for. Low scores on deep URLs can impact the entire domain. Google, this is another important factor. Google has talked about now saying that if you have 8 great pages on your site that your users love and they visit, but you have 5 pages that people do not like, or they're loaded with ads, or whatever the trigger is that elicits a negative response from the user, those are going to penalize your better pages because it appears to be not a page-by-page analysis, but a domain-based analysis. It should be page-by-page, but it appears to be a domain-type penalty, which offers an interesting question because you have these social sites where people can create their own pages, and if a lot of them are low quality, you would think theoretically it should drag everything down. Google's algorithm before Panda. Most of us were doing link building, SEO on a day-to-day basis. This is stuff we know. We don't, of course, know the weighting on these variables. We don't know the constants. We don't know the precise formula of how the algorithm calculated things. But as a matter of best practices over time, which is how everybody tries to understand a complex system, these are the things that Google's algorithm was mostly composed of from an SEO standpoint. So you had keyword selection and then use of the anchors to help Google understand the relevancy of a URL. So if you anchored a page about cats with the word cat food, that would help Google understand that that page was about cat food. Google's content analysis is not as good as I think people might anticipate it is. They think that because Google is so intelligent, they can detect everything on a page, but that's not sufficient for ranking. What they did is they took link quality, backlinks from older domains, age backlinks, backlinks from related IPs or in the same geographical zone as a measure of quality, plus link volume, and plus link velocity for freshness, and they use that to calculate whether a site should rank higher for the terms that it's relevant. Domain age and domain trust, the age of the content, things like that also play a factor. And of course, there's simple on-page factors. They've been looking at site speed for well over a year now. Obviously, your code has to be well crafted, complete tags, your doc type should be valid. Like your code should all match your document type. People who hack by hand tend to break document type validation, things like that. Obviously, the proper use of tags and markup, classifying things as the right elements. I believe that a diversity of HTML elements is something Google actually looks for in a well-coded page. And a well-coded page is kind of a signal that if the page is well-coded, then the website is well-maintained. And if the website's well-maintained and the page is well-coded, the user experience is good. And the webmaster is trying to do an honest job. And Google's algorithm is a rolling algorithm. Google is split testing apparently every single day or every few days new things, and you're not even noticing it. It's rolled into things. It's in real time. You can go do a search, come back and do a search 6 hours later, and the search could be significantly different depending on the term. And that has been persistent now for about 2 years. Google has been doing that pretty aggressively. Google is trying to achieve search result pages for users, not SEOs. And I think sometimes SEOs and link builders have a habit of sticking their head in the ground and ignoring the fact that Google doesn't care about them. We, as link builders and SEOs, are not important to Google. Who's important to Google is the searcher who may ultimately click on an ad, who uses Google and helps increase their brand power, who may be a potential stockholder, could be a potential future stockholder. There's a lot of angles that Google's trying to cater to those users. We are not important to Google. They're also trying to minimize exploitation of the ranking algorithm. This is an ongoing project. Since Google was launched, people have been finding ways to exploit it. And there's always someone out there exploiting it. Just building links alone is only a small part of the picture. Back in the day, people used to build doorway pages, and you know, I used to do misspellings. You know, we used to be able, before Google automatically corrected misspellings, we were able to exploit misspellings, and that was pretty fantastic as long as it lasted. It wasn't as long as I would have liked. I'm going to skip the next one and go to, I'll come back to it because it's a little bit long. They're also trying to determine trust through behavior models. So they're trying to look at what humans like and then figure out a way to evaluate based on that, instead of just these arbitrary, you know, numerical metrics like total links or total domain age. They're also trying to predict trust with this algorithm before the initial user activity. Once they build a model of what a good or bad site is, they see your site through a link, or they naturally discover it, or you submit it somewhere. They scan the site, and they can determine what they're trying to do in advance, whether your site is good or bad. And that's really important because you may not even had a single organic user hit your site if the spiders found it first, and you're already being determined, you're already being ranked. Google is now in the business of appraising the quality of your content, your user experience, and your website. Obviously, Google is always trying to differentiate themselves from Bing now that Bing and Yahoo have formed a search alliance. It's important for Google to put as much distance between the two of them as possible. Bing doesn't seem to invest a lot in their search technology. They're part of a bigger Microsoft empire. Google search is still the jewel of the Google empire. Google, their number one product is search, and I can't see that changing anytime soon. The point I missed, and it's a little bit complicated, I'll try to make it simple. I went over it a couple times. Ordinal versus cardinal number-based rankings. Now, to understand that is, if you can imagine a list of 10 items that you like, 1 through 10, and at the top is apples, and somewhere in the middle are orange and bananas, okay? You prefer apples at the top of the list to everything below it. And you may prefer oranges at 5 and bananas at 7. So you prefer oranges more than bananas and apples more than both. So when we understand a ranking of factors, an order of importance, that's called an ordinal ranking, okay? And we use that to take any idea and slot it into any factor and look at where its value should be relative to others. A cardinal number is a proper number. So instead of saying I like apples more than bananas and oranges, we might say I like apples 4.27 times more than bananas and oranges. Obviously, nobody does that. There's no way to quantify that difference in numbers, although you will see statisticians and economists do it constantly. It's a fallacy. You cannot determine value that way as a comparison. Values are, there's an interpersonal comparison for value, and it should be done in an ordinal manner. What Google is doing here is trying to build qualitative, ordinal, versus quantitative, how many links do I have, results. Okay? They're looking specifically for factors, and the prevalence of those factors, positive factors over negative factors, are going to trigger a result score. Whereas in the old days, you had so many links of such a quality, and it all added up. It was basic algebra. This is really, really important. This is a different look at how Google is trying to change search in a way that makes it very hard to game and yields a higher or better user experience. That is their goal at all times, is to deliver great results to visitors. User-driven result pages are Google's holy grail, okay? It's their holy mission. It's what they're on. They are trying to get users to help them build the search result pages, which in turn will be great for the users, okay? Everybody tries to do that. They're trying to crowdsource their surfers and their searchers and get those people to determine what's important. When did Panda take effect? Okay, so Panda 1 rolled out, this is from Search Engine Land, I believe. Panda 1 rolled out February 24th, and it was a long wait until Panda 2 came out, and then 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 was just recently. There's about a month gap. The gap between 1 and 2 were pretty big. Again, this is crucial because in between these updates, if you had been penalized, any of your domains, any of your sites have been penalized, and then they came back, if you watched it daily and the dates match up, this really helps you understand what happened, in that you couldn't actually fix your issue, or you didn't get a rank increase anyway. You were not seeing the benefit of your labor to fix things, modify things, correct problems, grow your site. You were not able to see the search benefit of that until they did a refiltering. Again, this is a filter on top of the algorithm. It's not the algorithm in total. The algorithm underneath is still rolling. But if you've been applied a Panda penalty, the only time you can get out of the Panda penalty is the next time they manually update. This is why you'll see people on forums say, I built links and nothing happened. And I changed my content and nothing happened. And then I built more links and then something happened. So therefore, correlation is causation, which I'll talk about. The last links were the ones that fixed the problem. When all along, really, it may have been the first thing they did that fixed the problem. It just took Panda time to catch up. We have to be careful drawing conclusions on limited data like that. But what we do know are these dates, and if you can correlate the date when things are happening at your website, I think that's a better way to look at what's happening with Panda. User experience is about trust, okay? Satisfaction and value are psychological phenomena, okay? It occurs in our mind, okay? And everybody's mind is different, and everybody's value scale is different at every point in time. This is very complicated if you go that far. So trying to assess trust across a lot of users and come up with general principles actually plays to the SEO's favor because Google can't get too weird with outliers. They have to find the stuff that's most broadly accepted by people in order to build an algorithm like this. High trust generally manifests itself through increased website engagement. If you like a website, you may comment on it. If you're enjoying a website, if the content is compelling, if they've just grabbed you, it's talking about an issue that's important to you, you're more likely to comment or to rate or to sign up and get an account, to participate, okay? So it's again, good content creates trust and then gets engagement, and as people engage more with the site, their trust level naturally, they get a level of comfort, their trust goes up even higher. Traditional search engine-based trust was based on domain age and backlink quality. These were two of the primary ways Google could determine whether a site was trustworthy, was who's linking to them, the quality, and then the age of the domain. Did this just appear? Did someone just register this last month and put ads all over it? Or have they been in business for 4 years? Do they have a track record in our search? Do they have records in archive.org so we can see that they've been evolving the site? Good sites evolve. Good sites improve. Good sites last. Panda Trust is based on the predictive filter. Okay, so again, it judges a site based on the factors found on good and bad websites that humans have picked. Okay, so again, looking for those common factors. And we all know what a bad website is, and we take it for granted, but we participate in good websites every day, so we know what those are as well. Okay, Panda factors we can monitor. Because we don't have access to the questions that were asked, we don't have access to the machine learning algorithm, we are not aware of the small changes they're making. I really like to stress in all my webinars that we're really ignorant of what's going on at the algorithm level. All we can do is kind of watch and observe and draw some theories from that and occasionally test them. But there's some factors we can watch because we know that user engagement and we also know that Google's using these same metrics to gauge user engagement and user satisfaction. We can kind of monitor these. I can't say honestly that I know that these are precisely the factors, but these are ones we can monitor. Search impressions and click-through rates. Okay, how many times does your site show up on a search engine result page that a human views? And then how many times does it get a click-through? So if somebody searches for dog food and you come up 100 times and you get 12 clicks, that's a 12% click-through rate. Okay, regardless of your position, whether you're in 1 or 10, wherever you are in the results, and as we've all seen with Google, position can fluctuate from search to search. You can rerun a search and your position will be different. Time on site. How long does the average visitor stay on the site? Okay, again, you want to watch out for outliers. You might want to drop your bottom 5% who leave instantly and your top 5% who stay for a really long time. They may have walked away from the computer while on your page. Actions on site. When they hit your site, are they clicking anything on your site? Are they voting on a poll? Are they drilling down deeper to another URL? Are they reading the About Us page? Are they engaging in an action on your site? Bounce rate. Bounce rate is when somebody hits a page and leaves the site right after. So they hit the page and leave, meaning that they didn't find anything deeper than that specific page they were looking for, and they're not engaging with the site. It either had the information they wanted, easily presented,